Nearly 225,000 Americans have already died from coronavirus. And Donald Trump's chief of staff, Mark Meadows, threw in a white flag during an interview with Jake Tapper over the weekend. Watch.
Your website is talking about, well, now we think the spread is coming from small social groups and family groups. First it was large groups, now it's small groups.
It's
now
coming from all sorts of places.
Well,
it's
that's
coming from all sorts of places
that's
because
exactly
the pandemic's out of control.
So here's what we have to do. We're not going to control the pandemic. We are going to control the fact that we get vaccines, therapeutics, and other mitigation.
Why aren't we going to get control of the pandemic?
Because it is a contagious virus, just like the flu.
Yeah, but why not make efforts to contain it?
Well, we are making efforts to contain it.
By running all over the country, not wearing a mask?
Jake,
that's what the vice president's doing.
We can get into the back and forth. Let me just say this. Is what we need to do is make sure that we have the proper mitigation factors, whether it's therapies or vaccines or treatments, to make sure that people don't die from this. But to suggest that we're going to actually quarantine all of America, lock down our economy.
No one's saying that.
Well, they are. Joe Biden's saying that. He says lock everybody down. We're going to have a dark winter. We're going to have a dark winter.
That's what health officials say. That's what health officials say.
So there you have it. He says we're not going to try to control the pandemic. I think that was already pretty obvious based on the numbers that we've been experiencing here in the United States, especially compared to other developed countries. And again, 225,000 Americans, nearly that many Americans dead during this pandemic. And the Trump administration, to their credit, they do say the quiet parts out loud. On one hand, you'll have Scott Atlas engage in the motions of pursuing herd immunity, which could lead to as many as 4 million Americans dying from this pandemic. But then at the same time, denying that they're engaging in herd immunity or implementing that kind of strategy. And then you have Mark Meadows, again, saying the quiet parts out loud, saying that they're not going to try to control it. The administration continues to consistently disregard advice from government health experts, for instance, to wear masks, social distance, and avoid large gatherings as a way to curb the spread of the virus. Easy things to do. You don't even need to shut down the economy to do this. The White House is also facing a potential second outbreak. We're in the middle of it right now, or at the beginning of it actually, of the virus after at least 5 people in Pence's inner circle have tested positive in recent days. And Pence is considered a so-called essential worker because he's essentially doing campaigning for Trump, and for the Trump administration, that's the most important thing he can do. So it doesn't matter that he's been around people who have the virus. He's still doing campaigning. The administration is still refusing to take this coronavirus seriously, and so more Americans will die as a result.
Okay, so first of all, let's clarify Mike Pence being an essential worker. That's what Mark Meadows claimed in that interview. He could be an essential worker as the head of the coronavirus task force, but he could do that remotely while quarantined. But that is not what he's doing. He is going and campaigning as vice president to get reelected. What part of that is essential? It's essential maybe for his career, for Donald Trump's ego, but that is not an essential health worker or an essential worker in any other definition. So, and it's much more dangerous because he's now going in front of crowds without masks, even though 5 people on his team now have tested positive for coronavirus, including his chief of staff. So they couldn't find a better way to advertise how little they care about you. So now let's go to Mark Meadows. When I saw the headline that he said, we're not gonna try to contain it, I thought, I wonder if it's taken out of context, because that even for this White House, that seems so insane, right? So I watched the whole thing, and he does say, hey, we're gonna do the vaccines and the therapeutics, et cetera. And that's in almost all the media stories. But over the course of at least 6 minutes of that interview, about 4 times he's downplays the idea of trying to control or contain the disease through mass. So it was not taken out of context, and it was completely accurate to what he was trying to say, which is we'll treat the disease, but basically we're not going to try to contain the disease. We've given up. So hey, it spreads like the flu, it spreads like the cold. Now you could take measures, but we have chosen not to. And when asked why over and over by Jake Tapper, he kept saying freedom. We don't want to take away people's freedoms when they come to the events for Donald Trump, the rallies, we make everything optional. We don't require masks. Pence wears the mask, he said, sometimes, and he doesn't wear it other times. Trump never wears it now. And Tapper clarified, so you're telling Americans to follow the CDC guidelines, but you guys are clearly not following the CDC guidelines yourself. And he had no answer for that. His answer was, we're not trying to control the disease or contain it. We're trying to just treat it afterwards. Okay, that is giving up. And it's a stunning thing to say 8 days before an election, unreal. So, and I also want to show the graphs here because I want people to understand what we're talking about when we say it's raging now. It's not, hey, this is the third time around and it's another bump up. No, this is the highest it's ever been in the whole 11 months. So over the last 7 days, they do a 7-day average. It is the highest 7-day average since the beginning of this year, since we ever found out that there was a coronavirus. So you remember the huge spike in March and April? Well, you see it there, there's the April spike, right? That you remember that as a huge April spike, right? No, but actually the July-August spike was worse, and now the October spike is even worse. This chart right here is what incompetence looks like.
Yeah, absolutely. And what you'll hear from the Trump administration, it's been a line that has been used for months now, is that the reason why the United States looks so bad is because we just do a better job than anyone else when it comes to our testing, but that's not the case. So if you take a look at the daily coronavirus tests per capita, so this accounts for the difference in populations in all these countries, the United States is not the best when it comes to testing. We're all the way at the bottom of this list. Luxembourg, the UAE, Bahrain, Spain, Singapore, Belgium, the UK, Ireland, Russia, all of these countries perform more tests per capita than the United States. And this is according to data from Johns Hopkins University. Now, if you look at daily coronavirus cases, these are new cases, the United States is at the top of that list. It does not look good. This is the 7-day average. The United States is above 61,000 new cases per day. And if you look at the total COVID deaths per capita, we're pretty high up there, although there are a bunch of countries that are ahead of us, or not in a good way, obviously, in the number of coronavirus deaths per capita: Peru, Belgium, Bolivia, Brazil, Spain, Chile, Ecuador, Mexico. And then you have the United States with 68 COVID deaths per capita. But remember, we're talking about the richest country in the world with so many resources that could be utilized in order to keep people safe. And just a simple campaign that encourages people to wear masks when they're out in public, encourages people or discourages people from gathering in large groups. The Trump administration is incapable of doing any of it. Donald Trump believes, and he has said this, he has said it explicitly during an interview with the Wall Street Journal. He believes that when people wear masks, it makes him look bad. It goes back to his own vanity, and it shows that he has absolutely no regard for people's lives. What he cares about first and foremost is how he appears. Even when he knows that discouraging people from wearing masks means more people are gonna die under his watch, but he doesn't care. He doesn't care.
Okay, so let's be fair and share the per capita numbers across the board. So yes, overall in raw numbers, we're #1 in most cases in the world and #1 in most deaths in the world. Now, obviously there are more populous countries than us, like India and China, but we are among the more populous countries. So what is it per capita? Well, both in cases and deaths, we're #9. Hey, that's better than #1, as in the worst. But that means we're 9th worst out of over 200 countries. Not out of 10 countries, not out of 20 countries. We're 9th worst per capita in both cases and deaths out of over 200 countries. So yes, all those countries, Kazakhstan, Tajikistan, Uruguay, you name it, it doesn't matter. We're 9th worst per capita. And so we do a lot of testing. But Anna showed you the per capita testing. But other countries like Singapore, which has done a fantastic job of containing the disease, they test 10 times as much as we do. So then finally, Trump says, well, We do a lot of testing. We're among the leaders in testing, right? Okay. Then he's implying that that is why we have so many cases. All right, now let me break that down for you real quick. So guys, if it was because of the testing that we are reporting more cases, the more testing we do, our percentage of people who have coronavirus to the number of people who have been tested would go down. Because we're testing so many people, you'll have a lower and lower percentage of cases if the number of cases are not really that high, right? But recently, the number of cases per test has gone up, not down. And that means no matter how much you test, we're getting a higher percentage of people testing positive because tons and tons of people actually have it. And so now they're starting to get overloaded in El Paso, Texas. These are the hospitals and healthcare providers. And in Utah, and guess where the worst outbreaks are? The Dakotas, number 1 and 2, North Dakota and South Dakota. What happened in the Dakotas? Oh, right, that biker rally, the Sturgis. And they were all tough guys and they didn't wear masks. Oh, we don't need no stinking masks, we're not gonna get coronavirus. Oops, they got it. A lot of them got it. That's why North Dakota and South Dakota are number 1 and 2. By the way, Montana's in the top 5, Idaho's at the top. Gee, I wonder what happened right around there. Minnesota's near the top because of them. Because if you don't wear masks, the disease goes out of control. And now, the Trump administration has come all the way back around to go, yeah, so what? We're gonna let this disease that has killed 225,000 Americans rage out of control and hope to treat it at a later time. Thanks for watching The Young Turks, really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.